Good day to all, and I'm sorry, really sorry, but I'm afraid you're stuck with me alone again today. Pat is, what shall we say, um, under the weather, but I have high hopes that he'll be back tomorrow. Anyway, in the meantime, you have the joy of my views on everything. Well, not everything, but just a couple of things. The main talking point is about a man who most of us, I would say, didn't ever hear of until he was shot dead in Utah. And of course, that's Charlie Kirk, who was a devotee of and a disciple of Donald J. Trump, and who went round campuses. He himself was 31 years old when he died. He went around campuses in the States and in Britain and debated with people, encouraged people from the audience to come up and debate with him if they wanted to. Um, but he held views that many people would reject. Uh, uh, and again, the reaction to his death has been divided. You have some people who say, oh, well, he got what was coming to him. I mean, Trump's the guy that supports the gun law in the US, and so did Charlie Kirk, actually. So, in a way, they say they brought it on themselves. He brought it on himself. Others are a wee bit more, what's the word, muted or a little bit more subtle about it. And I think they're the party that are in the right. They say that Charlie Kirk was someone who was shot dead while he was speaking by a gunman, and that is a terrible thing to happen, that kind of political assassination. And I would completely agree with that. I mean, if you lament the death of John Fitzgerald Kennedy or his brother Robert, or if you lament the death of Martin Luther King or all of the many others, Malcolm X, um, all these people who have been assassinated, probably because of their views, um, then you must say the same thing about Charlie Kirk. However, having said that, some people it seems to me, a bit muddled. They of course, are quite rightly disgusted by the death of this young man. Obviously, very intelligent, a very good looking, energetic guy. So that's fair enough. But to go on from there and therefore say, oh, well, we mustn't speak about what he preached or what he promoted when he went to these various campuses in the US and in Britain, I think that's a step too far. And I think it actually is a very important distinction to make between the something that happened to a person and the views that they held. I think everybody's got a right to have the views that they have with certain restrictions, but nobody's got the right to, I don't think, to take a rifle and kill. Now, having said that, a lot of the people who would agree with me on that about a political assassination, they've no problem with the mass murder of people in Gaza, say, or people in Ukraine, or people in Russia, or in other circumstances, which is a bit odd. I was watching, in fact, a thing on YouTube, and it was a Catholic priest talking about, I'd say he was about 40, uh, in his robes, talking to his congregation about his reaction when he was a young man when 9/11 happened. And like he says, many other young men, he was enraged and felt he needed to do something. And like many, he was on the brink of joining the U.S. Army to strike back. But anyway, he didn't. He became a priest. But he emphasized that um, in the world as it is, and human nature being what it is, that the Catholic Church has always supported the notion of a just war. That is to say, the circumstances under which you can, with a clear conscience, join an army and attack other people and kill them. Um, Now, I would grant them sincerity. I presume the priest believes that. Uh, but I must say that that idea of a just war, to me, seems non-Christian. Like, if Christ taught anything, it was that you just don't hate your enemy. You love your enemy. You do good to those that hate you, and you pray for those who calumniate you, whatever that is. Uh, so certainly the idea that you could have a just war seems to me strictly for the birds, and it's appalling to think about it because people who are horrified by Charlie Kirk's death don't seem to have any problem with, as someone pointed out, the 51 Gazans who in that same time period, that same day, were killed by the Israeli forces. So maybe it's back to, was it Stalin or someone who said that 10,000 deaths are just a statistic. An individual's death is a tragedy. So we can only sort of appreciate it when we see it at the personal level. Anyway, Charlie Kirk is dead, and a lot of people are in the States, it seems to me, are doing two things. There are two different groups, but they're both doing something with Charlie Kirk's death. One is saying that Charlie Kirk died and they're not a bit sorry because he had this uh, terrible views on black people. He believed black women were stupid. He talked about people of not non-whites getting positions of responsibility that they shouldn't get on merit or wouldn't get on merit, that they're getting in because of the color of their skin. And he says that the 1964 Civil Rights Act that gave blacks reasonable parity before the law, he said that that was a mistake, a huge mistake. So there's a lot of people who agree and are sorry to see him die, but believe that he was right in the things that he said. There are other people who are glad that he's dead and think they disagree with what he said. I think that's appalling. I think that you've got to separate the two things. The man's death, which I believe was a deeply sad thing, and there's no point in saying he brought it on himself. It didn't really, nobody brings their own death on themselves. Uh, it's sad. However, there's a danger that people will conflate the death of the man with the views that he had, and they'll also focus in on the individual's death, but be quite blasé and unaffected by the death of tens of thousands, as has happened in Gaza. Um, so Charlie Kirk was a man who I presume was believed what he said, very energetic, very good looking, uh, obviously was a good speaker, and I gather convinced a lot of people, young people, by what he said to vote for Trump in the election, which to me is a tragedy and a misuse of his talents, but that's what he did. I should say just one other thing about him. He was a very rich man. And how did he become a rich man? Through setting up these organizations. I forget what it was called, what they're called, but they're sort of youth groups within universities and different places like that who will um, espouse right-wing views in politics and other things as well. Um, so that's how he became extremely rich. I mean, he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars when he died. Again, you might say, well, he's got talent and he used his talent to get his message across. And why wouldn't you pay him? And yes, that's right. That's good. That's good. That's fair enough. I think the piper deserves, if he's playing the tune, he deserves to be paid. But any notion of him being a sort of Christ-like figure, detached from earthly things and only devoted to godly things like Trump, is strictly for the birds. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about, maybe I'll think of several other, but the one that is on my mind at the moment is Heather Humphreys. As you know, Heather is the Fine Gael nominee for the presidency of Ireland, not the Republic of Ireland, but all of Ireland. She, there's been a couple of problems. One of the problems she had was that she doesn't speak Irish so well. She says she did her leaving cert in Irish and got it, I guess, but like many people who'd done the leaving cert in Irish, they allowed it to lapse, and she wasn't very good at Irish. That's what she's saying. However, she says if she's elected president, she will definitely brush up in her Irish. She will go to the Gaeltacht for a period of time and become fluent in the use of Irish. Very commendable, I must say. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's really good." There's a woman from Monaghan who's a Protestant, a sincere Protestant, but who is also a sincere Irish woman and an admirer of Irish culture. However, there's one little flaw or uh, unfortunate aspect of this, and that is that I gather back in something like 2011, Heather was running for some other office. Maybe it was the minister, maybe she wasn't running, but she was made the Minister for Arts and Heritage or something like that. And she said then, my Irish is not very good. Like many other people, I got it passing my leaving certificate Irish, but I really am not that good at it. But I promise you, I'm going to go to the Gaeltacht and I'm going to learn Irish and I will become fluent in it. So that's twice she has promised that she'll go to the Gaeltacht and become a fluent Irish speaker. Now, I can understand it because many of us become enthusiastic and say, "Oh, I vow I'll do this. I'll definitely do that." And then it comes to the point you don't do it. However, when you're a politician, you're a public figure, and you make promises to the electorate, I think you should keep them. And she's at least got a bad record once. Uh, she had made one mistake, as it were, or unfortunate, that she said she would go to the Gaeltacht and become fluent. And now here she's saying the same thing again. Not that that kind of thing is confined to, the Fine Gael party. I mean, a man that we all admire. I'm sure if you watch myself and Pat normally, you remember that Michael D. Higgins did promise the electorate the first time he ran for president that he would be a one-term president. I think it was because of concerns about his age, but he probably definitely be a one-term president. But then when his term of office, his first 7 years was up, he had shifted a little bit. In fact, he shifted quite a bit because he ran for office again. And I'm not sure whether was there an election or was he just sort of ceremoniously piped into the Arsenuk throne for another 7 years. So he didn't keep his promises either. So if it's bad of Heather to promise to learn Irish, then I would say it's bad of Michael D to make promises about serving for just one term. Heather has, besides that problem of speaking Irish, she has a fresh one which has just arisen, I think, more recently. And that is some reporter asked her what her relationship was with, or if she was a part of, the Orange Order, because in Monaghan and in border counties generally, in Donegal too, there is quite a smattering of people who would have been, who are Protestant, I guess, and who would have been Unionist before partition, certainly. They would have had associations with, or maybe even been part of, the Orange Order. And Heather was one of those families. And she says, she was quite frank, she said when she was a child, she used to be brought to the field and listen to the speeches, and she'd go out and watch the bands go past. And it was a part of their lives as a family. She said, however, that when she grew up a little bit, she stopped going, and certainly when the Troubles broke out, she stopped going to attend any of the Orange Order marches on the 12th. However, she was asked about her husband. Was her husband an Orange man, a member of the Orange Order? And she says, well, I'll let him speak for himself. You better ask him. So she wouldn't say what her husband was, whether he was in the Orange Order or wasn't. The fact of the matter is, he was in the Orange Order. He most definitely was. Now, whether he still is in the Orange Order, I don't know. But he was in the Orange Order. And it's left Heather in a sort of an unpleasant situation, something she wouldn't have wanted to happen, because it might affect her vote when it comes to voting in who's going to be president. It's not that she disowned the Orange Order, but she clearly didn't applaud it either. In fact, she tried to turn her situation as a Protestant and living on the border area and having actually been brought up in a family where the Orange Order was revered. She tried to turn that into an advantage and say, if I'm President of Ireland, I can show the Protestants, the Unionists of the North, they have nothing to fear. I, a Protestant, maybe from a Unionist family originally before partition, look at me. I've been elected president. So what are you? There's nothing to be afraid of should there be a border poll, which would be great if it was true. Although a lot of people, including myself, would have some doubts about that. So Heather is having a tough enough time of it, one way and another. Um, Jim Gavin has been named the Micheál Martin's man, Fianna Fáil man for the presidency. And I've mixed feelings there. If Jim Gavin gets elected, it'll be seen as a kind of a victory for Micheál Martin, because he is Micheál Martin's man. And he was chosen before at least one other candidate from the ranks of the Fianna Fáil party. And I think quite a few people within the Fianna Fáil party, maybe politicians, are not a bit pleased to have this guy, Jim Gavin, an outsider, come in and be approved by their leader, Micheál Martin. So Jim Gavin has been keeping a very low profile. I don't know if he said anything. I think he did make a speech when he was nominated by Micheál Martin. But if he said anything, I can't remember it at all. He's a very unknown quality or quantity. I admire him enormously for what he did with Dublin. I mean, I thought he made Dublin into one of the best football teams, Gaelic football teams that I've ever seen. But actually, that's not what it should be. That's not the quality you're looking for if you're going to put somebody into the presidency. Finally, the last thing is, where is the candidate for Áras an Uachtaráin? Now, maybe it'll come from Sinn Féin, who knows? Maybe Catherine Connolly even. But who will call halt to the luxurious lifestyle that the President of Ireland lives in Áras an Uachtaráin? Áras an Uachtaráin, a house with 90 rooms, and there's homelessness rife in Dublin. Áras an Uachtaráin, where there's 30 servants to wait hand and foot on whoever happens to be the president. And again, I think that's ridiculous. And I quote, maybe you saw the podcast with Pat, I said that if Pope Francis could downsize when he was elected Pope and take a smaller apartment and be chauffeur-driven, fair enough, maybe not a good driver, be chauffeur-driven in a much smaller car than was usual for the Pope, then I think the President of Ireland could set a good example. Just think what that, we like to think, we're a small country, or Ireland is a small country. The Republic of Ireland is not a country, of course, it's a state, but it's a small state, and whoever's elected is going to be the President of Ireland, all Ireland. Just think of the good publicity it would send out, the good message would send to the rest of the world if when the successful candidate, whether it's Jim Gavin, Heather Humphreys, or whoever, when they were elected, said, look, I'm going to move into somewhere smaller than that. I want Áras an Uachtaráin to be used for whatever purpose, but certainly a good purpose. Maybe they'll use it as a museum. Maybe they'll use it as a place where people who are homeless can find a home, whatever. But I think if they were to do that and downsize the number of servants they have, or even to promise to do that, I think that'd be a winner. Certainly if I had a vote, which I don't, and which I should have, but if I had a vote, I would vote for the person who would say, I'm going to downsize. I think this swanking around like some sort of demigod, as senior politicians, and certainly the President of Ireland does, is ridiculous. Michael D. Higgins and his wife, 2 people in a house with 90 rooms and 30 servants, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, I can't think of any more things to say. So I want you to do a couple of things. One, if you think of something I should have talked about, please get in touch with me today and I'll come back on and I'll talk about it. I'll give you my views, mightn't be the right one, but you might want to hear them just the same. The second thing is, even you don't want to offer a topic for conversation or for commenting on, look at the button below your screen and there's a subscribe button. There should be a subscribe button. Please, I beg you, punch it, tick it, because if you do, you'll then be reminded, or you'll get a heads up every time myself or Pat have a visual podcast or a YouTube session. And that will encourage us, to be honest with you. The more people that we see coming to this site, the more it encourages us to speak out about stuff. And I think, with due modesty, we say things, and we say things in a way that most mainstream commentators don't seem to be prepared to do. So, there, having blown my own trumpet, I'll leave you. Have a nice day, as they say in America.